Hello, everyone. This is Jay Ellenby, president of Safe Harbors Business Travel. It's exciting. It's an exciting day for us because we have Rob Connors. We have Rob Connors from Enterprise Holding with us, and also known as National Car Rental. Before I go any further with Rob, first of all, I want to thank you very much for rejoining us for our travel executive video series. And I'm excited to have Rob here because there's a lot of discussion right now with what's taking place in the car rental industry. And so who better to go to than to Rob and share their experiences about what's going on at National and Enterprise. So Rob, last time we got together, I don't know if you remember this. We spoke, we had a similar call, June 17th, 2020.
I know it. It's been some time.
And do you
A
remember
lot has
that?
changed.
A lot has changed. I don't know if you recall that topic. The topic we were talking about was cleanliness.
Yeah.
And who would have thought everything has changed so much since that point? But
Right.
cleanliness and comparing ourselves to 2019.
Right.
So much has changed.
Yeah. What a change. What a change a year brings, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, thank you for joining us, Rob. Do appreciate it.
I'm always happy to come, Jay. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
You bet. So for our corporate clients, and can you explain what has taken place in the industry that there's such a shortage right now with
Yeah.
inventory of cars?
Yeah, for sure. And that is certainly the topic that's out there, Jay. And I'll give you some background on it, and feel free to dig in if you want to on any of these. But what we're experiencing is an interesting phenomenon where when the pandemic hit, as most of we what we call defleeted, meaning we had a lot of cars in our system and we didn't need them all because demand was so low. So we defleeted to a point where we thought was going to be a right place to be for the next several months, with the idea being that when demand starts to come back, as we're seeing now, we would just bring on more fleet. And we had what we call a fleet growth plan, and we had that all laid out, and we thought all would be well. Unfortunately, what we've seen is this global chip shortage that I'm sure most of your viewers here have seen on the news. And the chip shortage affects many things, not just cars, but it has affected our ability to get new vehicles because every car out there has at least 3 of these chips in them. And when there's a chip shortage, the manufacturers can make the cars. They just can't put them on the road because they have to get these chips in them first. So there's a demand very strong for these chips, and that has really slowed down our ability to add fleet. Now it's not at a stop. We do still have great partnerships with our manufacturer partners, and we do have many cars coming in. We are growing. We're getting new cars in all the time, but it's certainly been a challenge, and not one that I think most of us saw coming when the pandemic hit, that the hardest part would be getting new fleet on board.
Interesting. So Rob, the $1 million question is, when do you expect to be full capacity?
That is for sure the $1 million question. I can tell you this: we would expect that the demand that we see right now, which is a part where the demand is certainly equal to, if not outpacing, supply, and in some markets, I'm sure your viewers have seen the demand is outpacing supply, where you've seen us unfortunately not have cars available. I would say that we would anticipate that strong of demand continuing certainly for the next several months. So you can almost think of it through the end of the year. We do see some relief coming at the end of the year. We do believe that the stranglehold on chips will somewhat ease, and that as we enter the new calendar year, we should start to see some relief there. I couldn't tell you exactly when that is, but that's about the point that we're looking at. So I would say through the end of the calendar year, expect strong demand and tight supply. And hopefully come the start of the year, we start to see a little bit relief there. And then obviously as supply chains catch up, that's when that'll really tip back to a much better place for us.
Gotcha. So you said the key words there: supply and demand.
Yeah.
Anytime you have supply and demand, obviously pure economics takes place. Cost increased.
Absolutely.
Goes up. So what can our clients do to keep rental costs down?
Good. Yeah, really good question. And hopefully you've heard this from our folks in the field if you've talked to any of them. But number one thing is, even more so than the cost, most of our corporate clients would have a contract that they're working off of, and that's also certainly going to be helpful because it's going to help them control their costs. and believe me, they're very thankful in those contracts now because we've got some set pricing in most of them. But make sure that you're booking early, and that's twofold. Number one, it's going to help you with the rate, but number two, supply and demand, right? So as we just talked about, there are several markets where you've got to book several weeks in advance. So be sure to do that. The other thing I'll tell you to be sure to do, and I just saw this yesterday with a friend of mine who called me up looking for some help. And what happened was he was taking a trip and he booked a small car thinking that would save him money. And then when they showed up and it was him and his family, and he had 2 family members flying in from somewhere else, and he didn't realize they were not carrying on bags, they were checking luggage. His car wasn't big enough to fit all of them and the luggage. And unfortunately, we didn't actually have an upgrade for him to get into. And he ended up basically shoving everybody in the car, and they got bags all over their laps or whatever. He sent me a picture of it. But please be sure to book the car you need, because it's actually going to end up saving you hassle and money. Because if you have to upgrade while you're there, if we have it available, odds are that price has increased. So book up front, book early, and book the car that you need.
So if you could, I don't want to hold you to a time frame, but you use the word several weeks ahead of time and early.
Yeah.
What would you tell a corporate client? 2 weeks, 3 weeks?
I would say if you can book 30 days out, you should.
Okay.
But 2 weeks is sort of where, if you get within that 2 week frame, you may see some times where we don't have the vehicle inventory that we've had in the past.
Gotcha.
So certainly 2 weeks is sort of a minimum, but the earlier out, the better.
Okay.
Especially in some markets. Or, some markets are tighter than others. If you think about like where our business is, if you think about like Hawaii, it's out on an island. It's much harder to get new inventory out there. So think about a place like that. You should be thinking 30, 45 days as early as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Domestic, you probably 2 weeks is certainly the minimum, but farther out, the better.
Gotcha. So in your case, with National's case, you have the Emerald Isle. So I see where you're going with that. He booked the smaller car, thinking that he could probably get a larger car on the aisle. Is that probably what happened?
Yeah, he actually, in this case, he was with our enterprise brand, but yeah, you're correct in that assumption. I would still encourage people, if you really need the SUV, to be sure to secure it, because there's just no guarantee that it's going to be on the aisle. Certainly the aisle is certainly going to be stocked with upgrades, and we're going to do our best to kind of keep that going. But if you want to absolutely make sure you get it, National, Enterprise, any of our brands, please reserve what you need. The aisle is a great convenience, though, and something I would encourage, if you're not in Emerald Club or your clients aren't in Emerald Club, have them enroll. And Jay, you know this, because if you fill out that profile and you've got everything on file ahead of time, if there is a line at the counter, you're walking right by it in any aisle city, walking right out, picking your car and being on your way. That's going to save you a lot of time and quite possibly get you an upgrade on the aisle as well. Gotcha.
Okay, so corporate rental programs, the programs that are currently in place, those rates are being held for the rates that are currently in the contract.
Yep.
So that's good. So that's one way they can make sure that they do have that in place for every rental they do. So that's one way to keep costs down. We talked about individual membership, Emerald. That helps them also get that inventory, certainly on the Emerald.
Yeah.
Can they use that for personal?
They can. So most of our corporate contracts, you probably can't use the corporate rates for personal, but you can use your Emerald Club membership. So the Emerald Club membership does contain a discount. I think it's up to 10%. So depending on where you're going, you may see somewhere at 5%, you might see 10%. There is a discount on personal rentals built into that. So, and again, and the other convenience is just the upgrade can be built in if it's available, and the time savings at the counter, being able to bypass it completely. If you're like me, that's worth more than anything. I don't like waiting. When I get to my destination, I want to go, and being able to bypass and go and know that everything's already ahead of time been put into my profile, and I don't have to stop and sign anything, is a huge convenience. So I do encourage everybody to sign up for that.
Absolutely, I agree with you. It's a nice perk to bypass those lines. It's a nice benefit. So
and once you get used to it, it's really hard to go back any other way, because you just don't want to wait in line.
Very true. Very true. So Rob, what I've heard is certainly book early. Give yourself as much time, probably 30 days, which is a big ask for corporate. That's tough. So 2 weeks, 14 days to 30, probably the best window.
Yeah, I think that the biggest key is, Jay, when you're talking to clients and they're booking airfare, ask and make sure they know, do you think you're going to need a rental car when you get there? Because if you do, let's go ahead and book that now. You can cancel, and we appreciate that very much, by the way. Cancellations are real, especially now, really important. If somebody cancels, go for it. But if they think they need it, go ahead and make that reservation, as soon as they make the airfare. In the past, I think it was a lot easier, right? People could book air and they kind of make a decision maybe a couple days out. Let me grab that rental car when I arrive because I thought I was going to get picked up by a client. I thought I was doing whatever. If that's not happening, it's a lot tougher now. If you make that last minute decision, you may call up and find out we just don't have that car available. So I would suggest booking it when you know you're making the trip. If you think you might need it, book it. If you don't need it, cancel it. That's fantastic. But if you need it, please book it. If you think you might. Yeah.
Good advice. So you have the window, book early. Obviously, absolutely use the corporate programs for corporate purposes. Use that. And of course, if you're not a member, absolutely become a member of Emerald. So you have that additional inventory that's available to you too.
That's it. Yeah, definitely join the Emerald Club. And if you're not a member, you'll find out quickly why it's such a convenience. So.
Yep. Rob, thank you so much. Any final words, any final thoughts before we break?
No, I think final thoughts are, thanks for everybody for understanding where we are right now. It's really an industry-wide thing. I'm speaking on behalf of Enterprise, but I think you'd find this to be an industry-wide thing. We certainly hope that once we turn the corner at the first of the year, things will ease up a bit. In the interim, this advice works really well. Book early. Make sure you join the Emerald Club. Look, use your corporate programs when you're traveling for corporate. That's great advice all the time, but in particular right now. So thanks for the forum to say all that, Jay. I appreciate it.
You bet. National Enterprise, you guys are great partners. And so we thank you for the opportunity of also to ask these questions, because we do get these questions often from our clients. And this is a great opportunity to share your information with them. So Rob Connor, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And all of you out there, if you have any additional questions, we know where to go with those to get you good answers. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks for having me.